Um, why don't we go to the next slide? Thanks. So Paul is the co-founder of PassTech Development, software development firm, advisory firm that helps companies organize mission-critical systems. He works closely with executive teams on governance, risk management, and on AI as well. He also serves as the president of LISTnet and is one of the pioneering forces in the New York area to help really move technology forward. Thanks, Paul. And why don't you
Thank you,
take
Chris.
a few moments to introduce yourself?
Sure. So hi, everyone. Happy to meet everyone and happy to be here. Thanks, Gus. Thanks, David, for hosting. My company, PassTech Development, is a software firm, but we are software consultants, not just software developers, where we try to figure out what should be built and how to do it and how it fits into a company's overall mission. That's turned into being brought in to do governance on projects and risk management, which has become more and more of an issue. And obviously, AI is dominating a lot of what the tech industry is doing and a lot of what many companies are doing. And some of the things I want to show today are how do you use it for operational advantage versus just using it for the sake of using it. And what I'm going to go through today in real time are three workflows, and hopefully they work as planned. But if not, you'll see that AI is not always perfect, and it's something that you have to deal with. So one is going to be a meeting prep, and the idea is use AI to gather information for you as an assistant. Two is going to be use it to help you do something, so something you may have been avoiding, an uncomfortable communication you may have to have with someone. And then three, which is to me one of the most exciting, is where you teach it something that you're doing on an ongoing basis, and then have it do that for you or work with you to do that in a better way. And all these three are designed for all of us as busy executives not having enough time in the day and how to kind of steal some of that time back.
Great. Fantastic.
So let's start with the first one. And I'm using Claude for this. A lot of these techniques will work in ChatGPT or your AI tool of choice. I like Claude specifically for the co-workability and the ability to create skills. And I just find that I get great results there.
Paul, before we move on
Yeah.
from the screen, could you explain the difference between using a chat interface and the project mode of Claude Cowork that you're in right now?
Sure. So the project allows you to organize things that belong together. So if you see here, I have many chats. And I have projects here that are what are the things I'm focused on. And I have the ability within that project to kind of keep things contained, assign folders to it, assign knowledge to it. And I have archive projects here as well, where I can see the past things. And it allows me to kind of just focus on what's going on now. For example, a company had asked my company, PassTech, for an AI policy, and I created a project in Claude for that. I have a project here for that's how to use Claude. That's a built-in project for the Executive Mode podcast. And you see here, before doing this, I kind of did a trial run, and I kind of worked through all these myself and have some tools there. Within the project, Claude used to have Cowork as a separate thing. The difference between Cowork in a nutshell is it lets you use folders on your computers to do things. It's interesting that they've now kind of combined it into a kind of slider button here for chat and Cowork and kind of seems to be merging. And I think that's where it's going, that the functionality that was separate in this Cowork was really built into chat.
I think what they're trying to do by merging those two is they're introducing the ability for co-work to now be available on many different devices as opposed to just one
Right.
device.
Yeah.
And really, in my opinion, co-work projects are one of the huge power user techniques, and I urge you to get very familiar with how uh, co-work projects work. They allow you to really organize things, create specific skills related to that area of organization. It's incredibly powerful and useful. We're using it extensively in my company, and I know Paul is in other companies as well that are really um, pioneers in leveraging AI for work.
Additionally, this project is private, meaning it's only for me. I have the option of creating a project that's company-wide or just with specific people on my team. So a project we had to do recently was a code analysis, and I wrote up the details of what needed to be done and created, or Claude created for me a run book that I shared with someone on my team. And then he was able to take that project, continue asking me questions that I had loaded it with, and then use that to do the project. So it is really a fantastic thing to use. So I'm going to start with a first example. And one of the things that Claude offers, which I find amazingly useful, is the ability to integrate into your email. There's different ways you can do it. Claude has a built-in connector for Office 365 is what I'm demoing, but there is one for Gmail as well. Claude's connector is designed to be safe, where it won't delete emails or do a lot of actual stuff in your email, but it can access things. So one of the ways I would use it is, let's say you had an upcoming meeting and you had various people on that meeting and you wanted to kind of see who's going to be there, see what the topic is, and how you can find out more about these people. So I'm going to use a past meeting because some of my client meetings are confidential, but I had a forwarded email from Accelerate Long Island last week with details about a Zoom meeting. Can you get the details from that? Summarize the agenda, list invitees, and give me a brief background on each. So this is something that I would typically do. And since I've connected it to my email and calendar, um, it's going to go and look at that. So I'm going to search your Outlook email. That little Microsoft logo shows me that it's using the tool. Another way Claude could do this is there's an extension for the Chrome browser called Claude in Chrome. We're going to see that in action later. But this works very nicely for searching and parsing emails. I think I've given up on using search in Outlook and just use this almost exclusively when I'm looking for emails. So it's found the body and the agenda summary and the full invitee list. It's getting their backgrounds. So this is the Long Island Regional Economic Development, Innovation and Entrepreneurship Group. It's part of the Long Island Regional Economic Development Council strategic planning process, and this was focused on their consolidated funding. There were 5 blocks, and then here's what I was looking for of who was going to be on the meeting. Some of these people I know, some I know very well, and then others I don't know as well, but it gives me an idea of what are these organizations and who are the people. And it gave the kind of public roles here. So it says, if you like, I can look up any specific attendees, verified bios before the meeting. So I can say, can you give me more information about David Colon? And I could do this about any one of the attendees. I know there's a bunch of stuff out there about David.
I have a special agent. I use Hermes agent for those of you who might know what that is. And that agent specifically acts as my own central intelligence agency. I always send requests for it to research various people, get me background information on companies. Does a fantastic job.
So here it's giving me more detail about him, and then if I wanted to say, tell me about, let's see, Dan Lloyd. So he's the director at Accelerate Long Island. You could take this further. So I could say, for example, show me the recent emails between myself and Dan. Are there any to-do items if I had a transcript of the meeting that came out of the meeting? So that's one use case where I say, rather than you doing this yourself, you can have it do it for you and kind of organize that for you. Uh, do we want to do questions or questions at the end?
We can do questions as they arise.
Okay.
So far we're good.
Okay.
Keep going.
So let's say number two, which I think anyone that's an executive deals with this situation quite a bit. And I'm going to actually copy the text of this one because it's a little long. So let's say you have to do an uncomfortable email or something like that. And here's my example that I made up. This is not a real case, but PassTech Development has a subcontractor that has missed deadlines on the last few jobs. I'm really disappointed and want to convey to him, and also the idea that if this continues, we will not be able to keep using him. My thoughts are very disappointed in the recent missed deadlines. This is not what I expect based on our past relationship. If this continues, we will stop working with you. Is something going on that I should know about? Now I misspelled no, but I'm going to leave it because it's going to handle that. I said, I think this will be a sensitive issue for him, and I don't want to start a fight or have it affect his performance or desire to work with us. Can you help me say this in a way that covers what I want to convey, but conveys wanting to maintain the relationship? And this is something I use. Give me a few options because I wanted to kind of show me different approaches, and I find that that helps me kind of see how I want to deal with the specific email. And it's fun to see what Claude is thinking, balancing honest feedback with relationship preservation. You can, of course, click that to kind of see in more detail what it's thinking. I kind of find that fun to do. It says you need him to feel the seriousness and real consequences, the genuine tensions. So 3 versions that resolve it differently.
So Paul, this stuff you're reading out now,
Yeah,
is this what we call the chain of thought?
this is now what it's telling me back.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you see how it got to its answer, if you will.
Right. You can see, and to me, it helps me help describe things better. So it came up with 3 approaches. Lead with the relationship. I'm not going to read all the emails, but you can kind of see 1 is lead with the relationship. 2 is direct and clear. I want to be straightforward. And C is concern check-in. I've been meaning to reach out. So typically what I'll do, and I'm just going to assume now that this would be the case, I'm going to say, can we combine? And this is where I say, just using it and having it come up with stuff for you is going to get you somewhere, but it's not going to be as effective. I'm going to say, can we combine A and B, make it sound more like me? And when you use it, Claude will do that. And then these M dashes, AI loves to use them. If you use them naturally in your communication, then that's okay. I usually don't. So I usually say, please remove M dashes.
The infamous M dashes.
And I've tried, Gus and I have talked about this. I've tried to make Claude remember that, but they keep sneaking back in.
It loves its M dashes. We've got an interesting question.
Sure.
So as an executive, where do you see the operational edge? Does it help you make decisions faster, make better decisions, or make more decisions?
Um, I don't know about faster. It does act as a sounding board and helps me gather the relevant information to make the decision. And I think there's a famous slide that IBM had that said a machine can't be held accountable, so a machine should not make a decision, something to that effect. And I
That's a
think
great
that's
one.
true here as well. And that's to me what makes this a great tool is being able to do that. And again, it can assist making it faster in the sense of saying, doing this analysis, give me the pros and cons. And again, for me, I usually don't stop there. I usually come back with more. So I wanted to reach out directly, and now it came a little more into what I would say would be something. And typically my approach would be, I would take this, I would, put it into a text editor, and then I would tweak it a little further. I wanted to reach out directly, wanted to reach out to you. I value our relationship.
I
So,
find it's a lot more sensitive than I typically am. I'm probably more direct than I should be in situations like
yeah,
this.
and that's where it helps me because sometimes it helps me be quicker in that I just get my thoughts out and then it helps me refine them. I know what I want to say and it may not be the best way to say it.
Yep,
And like knowing that and saying, how do I frame it in a way that's going to convey the right message? It's been a disappointment. It's not what I expect. So I'll say, so one thing I would add is clients expect us to stick to deadlines and it affects PassTech. Not met, not what I've come to expect with you. Um,
we have another interesting question
okay.
here. So someone has Claude Cowork and they're using a bunch of MCPs, but unfortunately, they're not allowed to directly link to Microsoft 365.
Mhm.
Any workarounds you can think of to let them
Sure.
integrate?
I'm going to, in the next example, use Claude in Chrome.
Oh, perfect. What a great solution.
And provided you're allowed to use Claude in Chrome, it could open a browser and open your Microsoft email or any email and use it that way.
Great.
So let me just say that I did this, and then I would say copy here, and I say I tweaked it a bit. This is what I have. Any corrections or suggestions?
So I have a skill that actually takes whatever I've written and
Hmm.
it sends it out to Gemini, OpenAI's ChatGPT and Claude, and they all critique each other. It's very funny. Claude always thinks Gemini is doing a great job. Gemini always thinks Claude's an idiot, and OpenAI is off in left field for some reason.
Yeah. So there was a typo which it fixed. Now it's saying, want me to put it in a format you can drop an email? I'll say yes. So it gave me this, and it gave me this link to say open an email. I'll say, can you please create draft my Outlook? Now I know that the integration cannot. We'll see if Claude and Chrome will cooperate today.
There you go.
You can also install MCP servers that let you do this. I would say proceed very much with caution in doing things like that. You have to authorize all kinds of things. I think Anthropic takes a very good approach of safety first.
Oh, there it goes. It's
Let's give his name and email. Okay, so let's say Paul. I don't want to send this email accidentally to someone. Let's see if it knows that that's me.
So Katie mentions that we should update our skills to use no M dashes, and she has an anti-AI writing skill. I've written so many skills saying don't use M dashes, and it just seems to still wanna
Yeah,
use M
yeah.
dashes.
It can help. I mean, I have similar things. I have a lot of things in there.
And it always seems to get stuck on certain words like shape or surface or
Yeah,
those kinds of things.
okay. So this is where it's gonna go through the Claude and Chrome. Sifting. Claude and Chrome is not connected. So that is an issue with Claude and Chrome, which is unfortunate. Oh, I'm not logged in. Maybe this will do it. Okay, it was waiting for me to click on that. Let's try again. Claude and Chrome is considered beta, and many times, oh, here we go.
There you go.
It is flaky. It is somewhat flaky sometimes. It's going to open Outlook, so going to ask for permission. I'm going to allow it. It's going to ask me to sign in. It's not going to sign in. I have to get my handy phone out and do my authentication. So again, it's very much security conscious, which is one of the things I like about Anthropic. And now you'll see that it's using the browser just as I would. And this will let you do many, many things. But with great power comes great responsibility, as they say. And you are giving it access to act as you and do what you do. So if you say, like, for example, go and delete all these emails for me, it will do it. Permission allowed, okay. Ready? Asking for more permission. I'm just going to always allow actions for now. This is not as fast as MCP items, but it is really an amazing approach that I found it could manage any website. So anything you can do on the web, you can have Claude do. And the next level that we're going to see next is how do I make that a recurring thing and train it to do things. Here. So you see it's starting to draft the email. It does get stuck sometimes in doing this. Email is relatively straightforward with other websites.
I remember earlier in the year when Perplexity released computer and OpenAI released their browser agent browser, and what a like a seminal moment it was.
Sure.
And now it's almost commonplace.
So the amazing thing here, which people should realize, is it is not parsing the page and trying to get HTML elements. That's how people tried to do automation originally. It is taking a picture of that page and recognizing elements and then handling that appropriately. And then reverse engineering if it has to on where things are. And it's pretty amazing. And what you would do with something like this, I haven't done it for email, but I'll show you my next example. So it's an unsent draft uh, in my um, email there.
That's great.
Yeah,
That's
Phenomenal.
yeah. So I think if you wanted to here, you could have it send it again. That's where I say be careful. So another thing I did like that, and I'm going to switch it to a different project now. I run an organization, LISTnet, which is Long Island Software Technology Network. We do events and we promote the tech ecosystem here on Long Island. I have a newsletter that I do to kind of let people know about events. So I had it do something for me in Constant Contact. It was very painful for it to navigate the clumsy Constant Contact interface, but after I did that, I had to create a skill. So I'm going to say, can you use the ListNet newsletter skill? I want to do a new newsletter. Find the details for the executive mode podcast and edit newsletter. Grab the event details from an email, Amanda at Cogito sent, and sometimes you can let it go on its own, but if you give it a little help, it is a link to Luma. And then I also add rotate sponsor logos to show Cogito and no. Now I used to pay someone to do these kind of things for me, and let's see how we make out here. So it's running the skill. So there's a config file that it created for doing this. It's gonna use the same tool it used before to kind of find the right email. I do have the link to Luma handy if necessary, but it already found it, so it's not necessary.
That's great. And on the right-hand side, it's showing us its plan.
Yeah. Gather any executive mode podcast dealing, duplicate campaign and update the event content. So this is where I trained it first on how to do all of this. And that did take long. It wasn't the first one was a lot longer than me doing it manually, just like training an employee to do something. And then I've refined it each time. If we have time after, we're going to 3:30.
Yes.
Okay, I'll show how to actually make a skill.
We actually have a really interesting question.
Okay,
Um,
so
from,
you can see it's getting,
oh, there it goes. Yeah.
it's using Claude and Chrome and it's getting the event details. It's got the Microsoft connector and it's also using the ListNet newsletter skill.
That's great. So this question is philosophical in nature, but as we use AI to help accomplish a lot of these tasks, like research, for example, do you foresee humans getting less good at doing research and forgetting how to do good research?
I see it's a potential for humans to get less good at certain things, and some may or may not matter. When I first took calculus, there was no use of calculators. Now people do calculus with calculators, and you can argue were the manual skills the important part of that or not, you know? I
Great
think
question.
what I worry about is the thinking skills, and that's where I say we should not totally delegate our thinking to it, you know? And that is a danger and that is a risk. And that is the way some are using AI and some will use AI. So it's going and getting Meltzer Lippy's details.
That's a great point. I mean, since the advent of the slide rule and then the calculator, humans haven't all of a sudden become worse at math. They
Right.
continue to get better and better at doing
Right.
math.
Well, certain skills are no longer needed. Like, I don't know if they make young people memorize the multiplication tables anymore. I mean, when we went to school, they were like, you have to memorize this because you won't
True.
have calculators with you all the time. And now we all have them on our phone, on our computer. So, um, and you start to say like, can we do more? Um, need to level up. Oh, that's constant contact. So here it's going to ask me to log into constant contact. Um, so I'm going to authenticate here. And it's page not found. Let's see if Claude can handle that. Okay. So again, it's doing all this basically after having done this with me one or two times and me teaching it, pulling the information. I've done this where I've had people email me multiple events. I've had to create summaries. And what what surprises me, and the more I use AI, is I'm always thinking I'm going to have to like edit those summaries. But when you have a good detail and all that, it does a pretty good job. Like we'll see what it comes up with for this, but it usually is very good at summarizing content for events or things where there's good information for it. And let's see, you can watch it here. It's going to try to now navigate. And the problem with this, as with all things, is constant contact will inevitably change its interface,
Of
and it'll
course.
have to figure out how to do that. So it found the base campaign that it's going to copy. This is kind of how I taught it to do these newsletters, which is exactly how I did these newsletters. I copied the previous one. I would change things. I would rotate sponsor logos. It's going to name it for today's date.
It's not going to do the send. It'll just create
It'll
the.
just create it. So I'll just show you guys the skill for a second. The skill is written in English, and it tells you read the config file. Here's the CC editor environment, and it learns eventually how to navigate these blocks, that there's these editing blocks. It tells you how to make changes stick, and it learns this by trial and error. Sometimes it says it can't insert by JavaScript, so it comes up with other ways. Um, so these are instructions that Claude wrote for itself. And again, you can tweak this. You probably would not write something like this yourself. And then here are common pitfalls: clicking the wrong content editable element, trying to insert images via inner HTML, web fetch block for sponsor websites, image library, and then it has a formatting reference to make sure everything looks the same. So I find that interesting that you can have it make these skills and see how it describes things to itself. And to me, that's one of the ways I learn how to communicate effectively with it is seeing how it gives notes to itself. Event container. So I'm sitting here like this, but typically I would let this be running and I would be doing other things. That's the gaining time back, and I'm not doing this.
So how long, or let's say before, how long would this process take? And with Claude, how
Yeah,
much time do you spend on it?
I mean, it would take an hour for me or someone I hired and trained would probably take a couple of hours to do this, all the different parts of it. This is relatively simple with one event. But getting the sponsor logos, updating the logos, it formats the logos without me having to tell it to. It just there's a lot of parts that go into it and saying all the logos have to be consistent or the same dimensions. Let's see, screen. And just so you see, here it is going through. It's coming up with the subject and pre-header. LISTnet President Paul Trapani on Cogido's executive mode, July 22nd, live on Zoom. subject landed in the front by mistake. So it's not perfect and don't expect it to be.
But it found the error itself.
Right,
So
right, yeah, it's really
Impressive.
pretty amazing.
it does have error checking built in, and yeah, it's kind of fun to watch it go through and do these things. Here, save didn't register, clicking save again. So here, Kojiro's Executive Mode podcast sits down with executives and founders to talk about how they actually use the latest technology, then has them show it live. This episode features LISTnet President with host Gus Baptist on technology, governance, vendor risk, where AI creates real operational advantage versus unnecessary complexity.
That was
So,
great.
yeah, so that without me having to do that, even when I had someone do this for me, the challenge would be I'd have to write a lot of the content. I'd have to write a lot of the sponsor content. So we can leave that be over there. And let me show you what it is to create a skill. I'll do a simple example. Folder here. This is Claude Cowork. So I have a folder for exec mode. I have an NDA, blank NDA there, and I'm going to say, can you create an NDA between PassTech Development and Cogito? So I'm lazy. I don't want to look up the address of Cogito.
There you go.
And you create an NDA, and it'll find that NDA file, hopefully.
Be interesting to see what address it finds.
Okay.
So it says what type of NDA you need. Use the file. Which state? Oh, New York. Okay, so sometimes it'll find that file automatically. If I wanted to be a little more concise, I would have told it use the one in the folder. Found the template. Let me set up tasks and read it.
There it goes. It read it.
Yeah, running commands. And again, if you want to see, fill an NDA with Cogito details, verify and save final NDA. Use Bash for something. And here is the NDA.
And there you go.
So it says Beth Page, which I don't think is your address.
Actually, it is not.
Okay, so I'm gonna say that is not right.
Actually, that is the that is an old address.
Okay, and you check there. Website.
I'm not even sure if it's on the website, quite honestly.
Let's see.
And we just moved, so
Well, again, and that comes into two things. One, human verification of,
yes, absolutely.
and then I could have asked it to verify as well. But, these are the kind of things you want to check. You want to be careful, especially with legal documents.
There you go. It got it. 55 Gerard Street.
So, one thing I'll say, since we are working with a legal document, this is an NDA, relatively low risk, so to speak. If you are a lawyer watching this, you should be very careful. You should not have Claude process your privileged data unless you have a zero data retention agreement with Anthropic. And you should look into the evolving case law on that, which is changing by the week. I'm not an expert on that, other to say a guiding principle. And a guiding principle for anything you have that may be sensitive or proprietary, think about it before you just put it in here. My company does a lot of AI development, and there's two approaches. And depending on what you're doing, one is to have Claude do the processing. The other is to create a program that does the processing outside of Claude and use Claude's knowledge for that. And that's where I say get into nuances of how to use it. But for something like this, so now I'm going to say, can you turn this into a skill? And upgrading this, which is something that I think makes it even better. Can you include template skill? Now, if I include a skill file, allows you to share this with others in your company or the places. I could make this skill and have it reference it from a folder, but I'm going to see if I can have it include the template in the skill itself. That way I can just copy that skill somewhere and people can use it. And these are the kind of things that you say, you start to leverage advantages, not just for yourself, but for your organization, where you say to everyone, use the Claude skill to make an NDA for someone. This is a real world example. I've done NDAs a lot of times. Now I'm making this little skill.
Here's an interesting question. So how do you decide which model to use?
I don't worry about it too much. I generally, based on my usage, I mean, I tend to leave it on Opus. Sonnet is decent for a lot of things. I would say the only one I'd be careful about is using Fable, because you will burn credits. And I've used Fable where we've done a massive redesign of a legacy software system, and it needs to look at a lot of things at the same time. So, you know, it really depends. I found Opus High, which is kind of the standard, is where I leave it. But
I'm with you. I'm always in Opus as well. Occasionally I'll go to Fable if I have something that's really difficult or complex.
I think an evolving thing, aside from security evolving and having to have some sort of control over what data goes in there, cost management is a frontier that has not really gotten developed. And advanced companies are doing that, where they're saying, don't let someone route a low-level request to the higher model, or they're using multiple AI agents. That's beyond the scope of what we're doing here. But just to show you, here's the skill, PassTech NDA generator, counterparty legal name, counterparty address, effective date, finding the address, important. Third-party aggregators are frequently out of date. OSC, so it learned something from us doing it. It gave itself a little M dash.
There you go.
It has the template. It actually created a Python utility for doing this, and created this skill. So to show you another thing you could do with that, is bring this back live. So we have a software product response, and I created a product assistance. So tell me how to create invoices in response. And this is basically a skill with a knowledge base. So you can add additional context to skills. Claude helped me come up with that context. So that's the nice thing about skills, is not only are they information, but they can have knowledge or they can have files. And this has become very useful. So in response, there are two ways to create an invoice.
Wow.
And this is giving technical documentation on that. And we're doing this because we're actually bringing this to a newer platform. But so those are some workflows that I find useful that I'm using basically every day.
That was great. Thanks so much, Paul. Greatly appreciated. And before we go, I thought we would touch a little bit on Kimi. Everybody's been hearing about the new release of Kimi K3. For those who don't know, Kimi is an open source Chinese model. Open source means the actual source code is available. So the if-then core instructions that are used to create Kimi are open source, and you can download them and run them locally if you have enough computer hardware. The other interesting thing about Kimi is it's also an open weight model. So Kimi K3 uses about 2.8 trillion numbers. And so they're making those 2.8 trillion numbers available for free as well. The weights are being released. I believe it's July 27th. And this model, being an open source and open weight model, is causing earthquakes throughout the industry. In certain cases, it is at the level of a Fable or a Chat GPT 5.6. So really, it's competing with a lot of the frontier models in many cases. Well, at least with the frontier models where they are publicly released today, internally, both OpenAI and Anthropic have models that are much more advanced that are going through the internal process to get released at some point in the future. The interesting thing about Kimi is because they're releasing it as open source, you can download it and essentially use it for free. You can use it to train. You can train it on your own data, things like that. Today, recently in the news, they just announced that the U.S. government believes Kimi distilled Anthropic's Claude. So for those who don't know, what that means is they basically sucked a lot of the knowledge out of Claude and into Kimi, as opposed to starting it from ground zero. So they to a certain extent hacked Anthropic's model to produce Kimi. Distillation is a common procedure. So, I can guarantee you that Fable was distilled on Opus, on the latest version of Opus. That internally they use that. But it's interesting developments we're seeing in the model space. You have any thoughts on that, Paul?
Yeah, I think the third-party models and these other models are going to be a huge part of this. And we're just at one part of everyone using these kind of mainstream models, but we're going to see an explosion of models. I don't think it can be contained. I think in many senses, this is kind of the new arms race, so to speak. And I think there's a lot at stake with this,
Agreed. I think it's our generation's version of the nuclear arms race, or the space race. But I would argue that it's probably even more important than either of those were, just because of what these models can do.